Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisholm, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com.
Hey everybody, I want to introduce you today to a husband and wife singer and songwriter duo named Jenny and Tyler. They're well known, loved, and respected both here in the Nashville area and throughout the U.S. and the world. They started out as two college kids playing music together, falling in love, forming a band, and starting a music career. But that's been over a decade ago, and now 3 kids later and still writing and touring, life hasn't always been easy for them, as you're going to hear from the gut level sharing they do in this episode. Jenny and Tyler are in many ways the quintessential singer-songwriters going for their dream in between real life. After these years together and the struggles they share as they write and produce and perform amazing music, you get the sense that there may be some changes ahead, especially with the birth of their 4th child and the challenges of balancing road life, independent artistry, and family. But before we get to our talk with Jenny and Tyler, let me take a moment to invite you to join NCS membership today, where you can be part of a growing community of dedicated Christian songwriters who, just like you, are seeking to get their songs out to a world needing the message of Jesus Christ. With NCS membership, you receive tremendous benefits such as participating in monthly masterclasses designed to take you deeper into the things that will make you a powerful Christian communicator and give you the tools you'll use in your songwriting for the rest of your life. Each masterclass is live, interactive, and about 90 minutes long, so we really unpack the topics that can help you the most. You'll have access to a growing library of the master classes that we've done in the past. Master classes like modern hymn writing, chord progressions for worship songwriters, how to record home demos, copyright, and much more. In the private NCS membership Facebook group, you can make great friends, find great co-writers, and experience a greater sense of belonging and community as you grow in your songwriting craft. NCS membership is only $14.99 a month when paid annually, or just $16.99 a month when you go month to month. That's only like 4 lattes, I think. So believe me, there's nothing like it on the planet, and I'll even offer a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't want to stick around, but I bet you will. Being an NCS member gives you discounts on our new Song Revolution workshop and on all NCS resources, such as our video courses that are dynamite. If you're ready to take your songwriting to higher levels, NCS membership is your next right step. So I loved my time with Jenny and Tyler in their East Nashville home, talking family, kids, road life, and of course, songwriting. They have a brand new album out now called There Will Be a Song that captures their folk pop sound with a lot of help from longtime collaborator Ben Shive and background vocals from the lovely and talented Sarah Groves. My takeaway from the interview is that Jenny and Tyler are the real deal. They're a young couple called to do great music that's not of the straight-ahead CCM variety, but music that captures the depths of life, relationships, love, spirituality, and the very real struggles that go along with living out this calling. These guys don't sugarcoat anything in our talk. They got real with me about it all, and I know you're going to fall in love, as I did, with husband and wife duo Jenny and Tyler. Jenny and Tyler, man, thanks for having me in your home. How are you guys today?
We're doing pretty well.
Today's been generally a good day, I think. Yeah. Lots of kid time today.
Yeah.
We're watching an extra 2 children, and we already have 3. So it's in some ways easier because they entertain each other, but in other ways it's a little bit more intense. So.
Yeah, 3 of your own, 2 neighbors or friends, and then
some close friends. Yeah,
kind of one on the way. I think, right?
One on the way. Yep.
Yeah. When, Jenny?
August 22nd.
Wow.
Coming up.
Jeez.
Yep. Just entered 3rd trimester.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. You doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Lots of sleep. Feeling pretty good.
Just got a body pillow thing.
Yeah, so that helps.
a few
Oh
weeks
man,
ago.
you don't get to be the body pillow?
Nope.
Not anymore, right? You had your chance.
Yeah, it does not work.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're pros at it, I can tell, and delightful home. I can just tell there's so much love here and so much of God's Spirit, and it's good, man. Thanks for
you.
welcoming me in and just spending a few minutes around your music and what God's doing in your life and your ministry. I do read up on the people that I interview, and you guys both come from very musical families.
We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in a home that was full of music, and Tyler's family is like, they're actual pro musician people. My family is not that, but they are music appreciators. And my parents in college were in bluegrass bands together, and writing songs. And my dad's band was called the 10 Beer Review because they sounded better after 10 beers.
That's good.
But because of that, music was just really fun at my house. And my siblings, my brother was just a kind of a naturally gifted guitar player. And when I was 12, I think, he's older than me, he let me sing in his band, which was pretty cool of a big brother to do that. So I think I got used to the idea of music being a possibility and just a central thing in my life early on, and was always pretty encouraged by my parents and extended family to sing. So yeah.
For me, it was my dad. As long as I've lived, he's done music in some capacity, whether it's composition or performance or directing other musicians. So it just seemed like, hey, I've seen somebody do music before. It's possible, And I was a business major in college. Jenny was an English major. I didn't do music because I didn't want to get burned out on it. And also I wanted something more practical because I wasn't going to do music ed, and I didn't have a desire to teach. So that's kind of where we came from.
Yeah. But your dad teaches music, right? Still,
yeah. Still performs, teaches. My mom joins him on jazz gigs sometimes. She'll do like a female vocal to these cutesy old 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s songs.
And he's a classical composer. He's like brilliant and writes these like 45-minute pieces of
very grandiose,
with orchestra and choir. It's really pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that'd be fun to access. Where does that live for him?
Yeah, so it lives on CDs, and because the performances have been with union musicians, they haven't been able to release the recordings other than like to get the rights and to pay for the rights to pay those musicians for those physical CDs. So I don't think any of his classical stuff is anywhere online.
Wow.
I know.
What
and
a tragedy.
It is.
know.
It is really sad. And so definitely a desire of mine is to get that, like to try to get that music out into the world another way. But it's so hard when it's like there's a massive choir and there's like all these union musicians who like that's their livelihood, and it's not Nashville. It's different, and they don't have the budget to release it on this mass scale.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, like I can give you a CD.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up in a home where we listened to everything from Flatt and Scruggs to Mahler, and it sounds like you guys did pretty much too. So very eclectic. You have a lot of influences that both of your parents really exposed you to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm probably about as old as your parents, so I know all these references.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like that's spoken into your musical development?
Oh man, probably in ways we don't even know, but the jazz element kind of makes it in to some more obviously like seventh or ninth chords, especially in the earlier recordings. But we just did a cover of LOVE by Nat King Cole a couple of days ago for this fun sync kind of thing. So definitely the jazz does. I think for me, the classical aspect makes it into production more. So this idea of layering melodies and harmonies on top of each other and using instrumentation as a way of hopefully matching the emotion that is in the lyrics to convey a more coherent message for that particular song. So some of the songs on the new record, they're about these, in my view, some pretty big topics, like identity and idolatry and things like that. And so some of those songs have quite a lot of layers to them.
Yeah. And in the second half of the show, we're going to get into There Will Be a Song, some tremendous depth to that record that, you know, and I've gone back and tried to listen to a lot of what you've done, and huge step, you know, self-produced, just so good, you guys. You met in college, started collaborating, married, babies, life, the road, touring. You're kind of the quintessential, you know, modern day indie family. You know, trying to dig out this, right? I mean, you're trying to.
I guess so, yeah.
You're trying to dig out this life of music and live your dream. How's that working for you?
Oh man,
it's a struggle.
Hard
for like, honestly, it's just a struggle. We talk pretty frequently. Evaluate where we are in terms of our desire and our ability to do music and balance it with the rest of life, kids, family, friends, church.
I mean, 2 nights ago, I came into the studio to track some vocals, and I said to Tyler, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
No more.
I'm done with this. And
it had been an emotional day.
An emotional day, you know, and there's a lot of just life with
extra hormones.
Yeah, life with 3 little kids and being pregnant and stuff. It's overwhelming. So, and I think that, you know, when you feel overwhelmed, then if something is hard, it becomes just like so much bigger
you just want to quit
than it actually is, you know.
Sometimes.
And we've been kind of, or at least I have been digging a little bit into the Enneagram, you know, and if you're familiar with that.
I'm a number 4.
I'm a number 4,
really?
yeah.
Yeah, so is Jenny.
Yeah, so it's just like...
We'll talk.
Yeah, so things just get, you know, my feelings get really overwhelming. But I think, especially lately, just a lot of that has to do with kids. And, you know, when we're on the road and if we're away from them and feeling like they're in this stage of life where they really need us because they're so little, and it's really formative for them. So we've, especially in the last probably 4 years, we've been feeling much more of a... just much more divided, I think, between wanting to continue to pursue music and wanting to just have like a more normal family routine and life at home. And I know that nothing's like really truly normal. But
we also like, we'll tour for a season or 2 and we'll look at it and we'll say like, how was that? And how did we feel? And going forward, what do we want to change? And that's kind of been, we've been doing this actively touring for about 10 and a half years, and it has changed a lot. It used to be 110 dates a year, and then we had our first baby and it was still around that. Then we had our second baby and it went down to more like 80 dates a year. And even with 3 kids, we've been doing 50, 60 shows a year, and for us that feels like too much. So last night over dinner we were like, hey, let's book like something once a month starting in 2020, and it's got to be worthwhile. It's got to be worth like leaving our kids and having them be emotionally messed up from us leaving. And let's see how we feel then.
But because we brought them with us And then as we've added each child, it's
It
just
just-
gotten more and more difficult
They don't
to do
like
that.
touring. They like the idea of coming out with us, but then when it actually comes to it, they're like, "Can we go home?
Well, they're like,
Yeah.
This isn't
yeah,
fun."
they're
I
like, I'm
want my
sitting in my car
room.
seat for 4 hours to 5 hours every day.
Or 8 hours. Yeah.
Can I not be
That's
here?
that's pretty bad. So
And we have a school-age child now, so she has to.
yep. And
be
she
here.
she goes to a local Nashville school, and Monday through Friday, 7 to 4, basically, she's there. So we want her to be really consistent at school. We don't want to take her out a lot. And she is crushing school. She has a love-hate relationship with it. It really seems like she either is loving it or she's like, can I just homeschool? And we're like, I don't think that'll work. But yeah. Yeah.
Real life, it's more than the glitz and glamour, if there is any, right?
Yeah,
It's
I don't
just
know.
the hard work,
Glitz and
right?
glamour
I don't know.
the road used
Where
to be
is it? Yeah.
romantic. It did, because it was like we're just the two of us. We're exploring together. We're finding fun places to have dates and beautiful things to see, and we still get to see that. But now it's like we have 3 kids at home, and we miss them, and they change so fast. And I feel like Jane's about to be 6. Our oldest is about to be 6, and I still have a role as a parent. It's not that I don't, but really, this first 5 years were arguably the most formative. I feel like she is who she is now, and she loves Jesus, and that's amazing. And she is an amazing kid. But I feel like my parenting is less active than it was when she was 0 to 5.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that with the other kids. I feel like I missed some time with Jane, and I don't want to do that with the other kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something got all this started, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so, what made you strike out?
No, I don't want to.
We don't want to sound like we don't like doing it.
Yeah,
We
No.
do like music.
we do.
There is a God, that is with you. And
No, God is
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah.
And music has been amazing, and it's for us. I've always looked at it. Do you want us to talk? I've been talking a lot.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I've always looked at music as like this is part of who we are. This is a gift we've been given by God. We want to be a good steward of that gift. We want this to draw people to Jesus, whether they know Jesus and they can know him better, or if they don't know Jesus, that this could be seeds, and maybe even a straight up like invitation to him. So looking at it in a ministry sort of way has been very helpful when 20 people come to a show.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, we're being tested on, is this about like the glory and the shine of it, kind of from the outward perspective, or worldly perspective maybe, or is this really about ministry?
Yeah.
And we literally played like 2 weeks ago. We played a show to 20 people in just what was the name of the town? In Friendsville, Tennessee. Like, if you've been to Friendsville, there's not a whole lot there.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was purposeful, and
Yeah, and I think too, it's been helpful for us to look. We have some friends who talk about music and their family, and it as not just being like mom and dad's calling, but as a family calling. And so everyone has to chip into that calling in a way. And so I think looking at it that way and feeling that has also been helpful to me, to be like, oh, it's not just our thing. Like, this is our kids' thing too. And they're just as much a part of this calling as we are. Yeah.
when they're on the road with us, they have roles. Jane introduces the show occasionally.
that's cool.
It is cool.
She walks around and asks people if they want to buy a CD.
Yeah.
we didn't even tell her to do that, but she's kind of a natural born hustler. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, like she really wants a role. Sarah just turned 4. I think she's just like along for the ride in many ways, and same with Mary's just 1. But Jane has kind of embraced this idea of like, when they're gone, like they're doing their job. This is where they are, where God has them, and I'm gonna look after my sisters. And then when she's on the road, she's like, I'm gonna participate in this. Sometimes they've come up and they've sung songs on stage, and people generally go crazy and love them, but it only works for about 5 minutes because then it gets very distracting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Challenging to handle all that.
Yeah, it's just a near constant conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what kind of results do you see? Like when you're in, whether it's a small, concert or larger, what's the reaction and the results kind of, if I can say, on a ministry level?
Yeah.
What are you looking for, and how do you know when it's there?
I'm not really looking for a lot. I want God to do whatever He does, and I don't. It's not necessarily about numbers. It's just like people could be stone-faced during the whole performance, and it could be one of the most meaningful experiences in their life. And then for other people, they could cry the whole time, and it could be just maybe they cry a lot, So I don't want to judge by things like that, but we have had people come to us and tell us like, hey, I came to a few shows and I wasn't a follower of Jesus, and now I am. And hey, I had this experience when I was on a missions trip where like somebody was trying to kill me because I found out about this corruption within this organization, and I was about to end my life, and then your song started playing, and so I didn't end my life. And so like it's things like that where we get little tastes here and there of what God is doing through it, but it's not like we can really expect that, know. It's a privilege to hear that for sure.
I mean, is there one theme when you're ministering? I mean, your songs, you've got a lovely mix of love songs in your work on all the records I was listening through. At least one kind of seemed to be. So that's obvious in your relationship here in person with you and your kids and all that. But is there one theme as you're ministering and doing your concerts?
Yeah.
I
think it's justice at this point, right? Or were you going to say something different?
No, I think justice would be the most specific thing, but more generally, it's the gospel. You know?
Sure, yeah.
We do focus on justice a lot, and we talk about.
Well, we talk about International Justice Mission. We talk about their work with bringing about change and. Eradicating modern day slavery and standing up for the rights of the poor. So we talk about that a lot, and through the songs, and then Tyler will talk about justice and why it matters. Why it's a part of God's heart. And we do an invitation for people to become freedom partners. And so I do think that something that has kept me going and feeling like, okay, even these this is a worthwhile thing to do is we'll play these little 20-person shows and someone will become a freedom partner, And I'm like, okay, like this person was deeply moved because I know for us, it was at a concert that we heard about modern slavery for the first time, and it changed us. And so seeing that happen and be like, oh, well, they just took a step to like actively involve themselves in this cause.
That is a measurable kind of thing. That is really, really encouraging.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it's cool. Like we did this like some covers records of songs that were near and dear to our hearts when we were in high school and middle school. And they're like the excuse kind of is they allow us to talk about justice and International Justice Mission because the proceeds go to them, and then from there, like the justice talk kind of gives us that into God's heart and the gospel, and that God is a God of justice and a God of love, and how those things come together most perfectly, most beautifully on the cross. And so it's like, wow, we have been given this almost like this template of like, it doesn't feel awkward to talk about. It feels very natural, and it feels like an extension of who we are. I think the gospel, maybe we've all felt this. I know I felt this, that if there's not an open door, if there aren't open hearts, and if we don't have open mouths, then it feels weird and not right, and maybe throwing pearls to pigs kind of thing. But when it seems like there is that openness in those three areas, it's like, wow, this is amazing that we get to participate in this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with music too, is like, it's a ministry. God still has us in it. We're not like bent on being musicians. If God says today, like, hey, I want you to work at Chick-fil-A or Lowe's, I would like to think that would not be a really hard thing to do. I think music would still be a part of our lives in some capacity, because usually gifts don't go away like that. Mm-hmm. We'd probably still songwrite, but yeah, for now we're still in it, and it's still kind of amazing, even though it's not as romantic as it once was.
I'd say it's more than kind of amazing. I mean, I think we still have the nights where we look around and we say to each other, how do we get here? Like, isn't it cool that this is our job? How do we get here? That still happens from time to time. It does.
I don't remember the last time that's happened for you. I feel like
think it does.
The motherhood thing it's been tough for you. But.
Yeah. Yeah, motherhood is hard.
Yeah. Yep.
Would you say that's been your single greatest struggle? It's just, I know we've talked a lot about it already, but I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think, motherhood changes you so much, because it is like a piece of you have a new identity, really, a new piece of your identity. And for me, being on the road, especially as a new mom, we hit the road with Jane, our oldest, when she was 8 weeks old. And I didn't know how I was going to feel with that. I didn't know that I was going to feel like I was a working mom. I felt like, oh, well, she's just going to be with me. It'll be fine. And there's a lot more, your body's a mess and your hormones are a mess, but emotionally, like, you're just dealing with, wow, I'm a different person now. Like, I'm suddenly a very different person. And so for me, I think there's always just been since I've had kids, like, this struggle of knowing, like, which identity am I supposed to lean into? How do I make them all work together? Like, am I a mom? Am I a musician? Am I a wife? What am I right now in this moment? And how do I make them all fit? And for me, just identity has always been such a huge thing, feeling like I have never, growing up in a military family and moving all the time, and just always kind of feeling like an outsider, because I wasn't from anywhere. And we lived in we lived in the Midwest, we lived in the East Coast, we lived in the Deep South. So, like, even culturally, all the kids I went to school with were super different from me. And I didn't really even know what culture, like, I was. My parents were from Western New York, but I never lived there. So it was kind of this it was just an odd way to feel just so intrinsically different. So I think that idea of not feeling like always fully myself, or that I'm really, or maybe not fully myself, but that I'm living as fully as I could be, or leaning into those identities as much as I could be. I don't know if that makes sense. Certainly has come into motherhood for me. And then after Mary was born, I had a lot of postpartum anxiety that all stemmed from a a seizure that I had while I was feeding her, which I have epilepsy. Seizures aren't like abnormal, but I'd never had anything happen like that with a kid before. And so I had to go to therapy, which is like, I'd never done that before. And I'd never thought like therapy's bad or anything. I just hadn't done that. But it became very obvious that like, if I didn't go do this, I was not going to be able to function as a mom, as a person. And so that, I think just dealing with anxiety and like having to accept that life is different now, and that I'm different now, has been just a really, it's been a hard journey, but overall I can see a lot of positive things, but yeah, motherhood, I love it. There's so many things about it that are just amazing, but it's hard. It's been difficult in a lot of ways. But I'm having another kid, so I don't know. And I'm excited about it. I am excited about it.
All that aside,
I'm having another child.
we're going to have another one. So that's wonderful. Well, we're going to take a little break and come back and really get back into the music and talk about the new record and kind of what's happening with that. So see you on the other side. We're going to take just a quick break and talk about something that I think is going to be very valuable for you as a Christian songwriter. So check it out.
Do you feel like God's given you a bunch of songs, but you don't know what to do with them? Do you feel like you've got a real call on your life to write, but you're clueless about where to start? Or maybe you've got writer's block and you're wondering if you'll ever get the creative juices flowing again. Well, we've got you covered with NCS membership. NCS membership is all about community and how to grow in this calling you feel deep inside to be heard. We get it. We know that you just want to honor God with your talents and be a good steward of what He's given you. And that's why NCS membership could be your next right step to grow, learn, be challenged, get connected, and ultimately fulfill your dreams to glorify God and reach others with the same passion you feel. It's designed to help you tell your story and to reach listeners who will love your songs. With your NCS membership, you'll receive 24/7 access to valuable masterclasses on topics such as modern hymn writing, worship writing, song form, lyric development, and recording home demos, as well as discounts for other NCS products and a deep connection into a community of creatives who get you. There are a lot of songwriters out there, so you need to be the best you can be to stand out, be heard, and become the songwriter you were born to be. Just go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com now to check out all the great benefits of becoming part of a decidedly Christian community of songwriters from all over the world. NCS membership, your next right step to being heard.
Well, I just hope that you'll take advantage of that and check it out. All right? We bring you good stuff here on the Song Revolution podcast. So back to our episode. All right, so I'm back with Jenny and Tyler and a bunch of kids here in the house, and it's so fun.
6 children.
Well, one's still in.
One is inside, and 2 are not ours, but 6.
So fun. We have been talking about just the reality of being a mom and a dad and musicians and being a singer-songwriter duo, trying to just really do ministry in the modern world. Everything that you have to, we haven't really talked about the marketing and all the business side of what you have to do to be successful at this. But at the core of it really is your own testimony with Christ and the love and the worship that you feel for Him and how you want people to experience that, right?
Yeah. I don't want to come off as like super negative either. like that, we've talked about how things are hard, but there's a lot of stuff that's really beautiful and wonderful, and I don't want to.
Life is hard, but God is good.
But God is so good.
And He uses it for our good. And we've seen little glimpses of good for even in the hardest
Yeah.
things like seizures and anxiety and times when kids are crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
And so in the midst of this, you are being true to your calling with all the difficulties, with the realities. You know, you're living this out through music that has deep meaning. And as I was saying to you a moment ago before we came back from the break, I've listened through the new album, There Will Be a Song, twice so far, and I've reviewed some of the back music. There's a definite shift in the depth and the quality. Not that the other was bad or anything, it was great. And awesome things. But this one marks kind of a change for you guys. So can you take us a little deeper into the new record and some of the content that's quite moving?
yeah. Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, these songs have existed for anywhere between 2 to 6 or 7 years, and it was in some cases felt like a very new project, or like not like a first project, but somewhat close, because we had this library of songs and we had all these voice memos. Really, most of those songs were not completed, but we had ideas, and so when we were selecting the songs to go on the record, we were able to demo them out and get feedback on them from our patrons, and they voted actually on their favorite songs. So it felt good to do this, like this record. It was self-produced, but it was self-produced in the midst of this patron community. So having people say like, hey, I think I get what you're saying with this lyric, but you may want to consider revising it. Even this word, like this word kind of has these connotations. So that was interesting. We've also, because we've been through this season is an overused word, time period of anxiety, which we had never experienced. And when I say we, I mean this has primarily been Jenny's, but I've been here while she's experienced it. A lot of the songs came out of that, and so you've got these different themes running throughout. There Will Be a Song comes from a song about freedom and justice, and looking at this day of where all things will be made right, and so there's hope in Jesus, in the fact that He will and is reconciling all things to Himself, and so that like kind of thread of hope is in every song, even though there's a song about us fighting and reconciling. There's songs about identity, again, idolatry, like my struggles with exalting people to places they shouldn't be. Basically, the second song, Lesser God, talks about the gods that we worship that promise satisfaction but ultimately destroy us. And then this divine love song about God, just like He's calling, and He's good and He's patient and He wants everyone to know Him, but love is a choice, and he doesn't want a bunch of robots following Him. Like, there has to be some kind of response to love, to His love. And so, like, divine love song, there are a lot of different topics, but I think, it's that thread of there will be a song. Like, there is hope because God is good and He's pursuing people who hate Him, and He's doing it because He knows that He's the best thing and that false gods will only destroy. So I don't know. There's a lot to cover there. It's like a autobiography of the last 2 to 3 years primarily, but like there is a song from about 7 years ago that is kind of a sweet love song that talks about our early years, called Wrote Us a Story. And yeah, so I don't know if that's what you were looking for. I'm kind of like summing up different songs.
No, that's great. So Jenny, tell us a little bit about Who I'm Not.
Who I'm Not. Man, what I was talking about before is like so much of that too, the idea of like identity and not knowing which piece of me to lean into at which time. And I mean, I can tell you that song was primarily written on the road. We were touring in this Sprinter van that we bought to bring our family out and bring a full band out. And we only had 2 kids at the time, but Jane, our oldest, was 2. She's potty training on the road. And Sarah was maybe 5 months old, so she's still waking up in the middle of the night. Like, it was a really just like totally chaotic time to have kids on the road. And we'd never had 2 on the road at the same time, and we'd never been out with a band before. And we had like 10 people in this Sprinter van. So it was intense.
Guess so.
And we did not know how intense it would feel until we did it. And I can remember having so many moments on that tour where I was just kind of looking around and thinking, who am I? What am I doing here? Is this worth it? And so that song came from a lot of those questions, like, am I a mom? Am I a musician? Is this worth it? And those shows that we played on that tour were so fun. I mean, it was awesome. And having the band play with us, we'd never done that before. And we were so excited about the record that we were touring. Like, it was a great time. But it was a really intense, like, wow, I'm a new mom again. So the majority of that song was written on that tour. And then, I think I've just, over the last couple of years, like that song was finished maybe 2 or 3 years after I started it. Just really had to be like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to feel completely like I'm living my identity fully. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel that way. I just might be one of those people who always feels like there's a little bit of something that I could be doing better or more, or a piece that might be missing. But that God sees me, and he says, you're enough. Because something I have journaled forever is, when am I going to change? When am I going to be different? And kind of just realizing, like, you don't really need to. Like, it's okay to be the way that you are. So yeah, that's kind of where that song came from.
Not that you don't need to, but you can trust that Jesus is perfecting you.
Yes, that's what I mean.
You don't have to perfect yourself.
Yes.
There's personal responsibility in it, but ultimately it's like, he who calls you is faithful, he will do it. And for me, it's like, if I don't get my identity from the Lord as either a son or a co-heir or a just being in Christ, then I'm my life looks pretty terrible most of the time. It looks like a lot of control, like me trying to do it the way I think it should be done. And
you've got some tremendous lines in Lesser God. And from what you've been saying, I can see all that in this lyric. And I'd like to quote just a little bit of it. I tried again to give it all, to give my all, but I got lost in the shine of gold. I tried to hold that glory. I chased the lights, took in praise for pride. I gave my eyes all they wanted.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great line. I love that. I don't want to write that kind of song. I don't want to give them any more of my heart. I don't want to waste the greater love. I don't want to kiss a lesser God.
Yeah. Yep. I don't. I can sing that because I still am so prone to that. I still do that in little ways every day, probably in ways I don't even know, but certainly in big ways as well. And it's just not worth it. It's just it is life-taking instead of life-giving.
And we were talking a moment ago about There Will Be a Song, and it's having grown up in the 60s, and my dad was a journalist and covered a lot of the civil rights movement when it was happening.
Yeah.
You know, we lived in Birmingham, Alabama.
Whoa.
And Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, man.
And so a lot of the references felt to me, you know, with you guys being with International Justice Mission, and I know they're kind of different movements in a way, but you know, but just the whole justice for all people.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yes.
kind of, I was kind of reliving some of my childhood, even through that song. So, is that kind of where that came from for you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were literally, if you listen to the first verse, it's almost just like a, this is what we were doing. We were driving west on Highway 6. We were in Oxford, Mississippi, and we were getting to Arkansas, and there was a thunderstorm, so we didn't go up to Memphis. We just went Highway 6, and it took us through these small towns. Marks, Mississippi is one of those towns.
Oh, yeah.
And that Martin Luther King went to that town, and he cried because of the poverty. And he actually began the Poor People's March there. So we reference him in another song about justice called Waters Roll, taking it from his I Have a Dream speech. But in both of those songs specifically, there's that like thread of we want freedom and justice, and we know Jesus is doing that even now, but we want it more, and we want to be a part of it.
Yeah. And we just never, I spent some time in Mississippi in high school, but I lived on the coast, and it's very different. I'd not been in the Delta a whole lot, which is where there's so much poverty in Mississippi in the Delta.
Poorest state in the nation.
And so we were driving through these little towns, and, you know, I'd seen some of that before, but Tyler especially had never seen anything like, you know, we live in a city, we've seen like urban poverty before, but not poverty.
Not country poverty like that.
Where it's lit, you know. So it was
giant cotton fields, and then we get into these small towns, and they're broken down trailers and cars, and just this heaviness in the air, and even in people's demeanors. And it's not like that with everyone. There's definitely light. There's a lot of light down there as well. But I think the general that day specifically was
it was eye-opening.
Very, very weighty.
Yeah, and just eye-opening to the fact that like this oppression is still very present because it's hard to overcome stuff like that and that kind of poverty.
Yep. And even the past few years, we've seen racism kind of surge up again in the national awareness, and I grew up thinking that was over. I grew up in Delaware, and racism was like that happened a while ago. That's not a present issue, you know. And it's funny, I can look back and see like how there was not necessarily racism, but I was from Northern Delaware, and the Northern Delawareans, at least the ones that I grew up around, there was this, maybe it wasn't said directly, but maybe it sometimes was, like it was called slower, lower, like this agrarian life. The people down south are not as intelligent. Some people would be harsh and they would say they're stupid, and we're superior. So there was this superiority, more culturally than racially determined, but yeah, it still exists. It's still pretty much everywhere, it seems like now. So that's, we want to fight against that.
So what are your hopes for that particular song?
Just that it would be a fuel for the fire of justice, that people would hear it and then they would say, okay, this is worth continuing to fight for.
There's hope. It's not.
There is hope. Yeah, it's not a despairing situation to despair over. God is working, and we can be a part of what he's doing.
Heading west past the cotton fields, Highway 6 in the rain. Even the trees' backs are bent and pleading for relief from the pain. The air is thick like a river wide, like it's been for so long. Ghosts, they're walking those yards of white, and they're still singing the same song. A song of freedom, oh freedom, till it comes, and good has won every fight. A song of freedom, oh freedom, let it come, let it run free and wild. It's great words, you guys. I mean, that to me is just world-class writing.
Aww.
You know, that's so far beyond the typical kind of thing in Christian music. Okay, I'm not just in Christian music, I'm in Christian music. But you know, this is a song that should be sung all over the world.
Thanks,
you know, for the International Justice Mission, as well as for racial reconciliation here in North America and all over the world. But we know it all too well. So as we wrap up, do you have one thing that you'd say to aspiring singer-songwriters who are out there wishing they could do what you guys do?
I feel like for me, it's kind of what I hear a lot of people say, and that is just play, you know, just get up there and do it. We started playing in Starbucks at the campus, the University of Delaware, and it wasn't good. But we played. I don't know. And like with the first tour, we just went for it and said, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And played to empty rooms, but we got good at playing, you know? So I think sometimes just for people, there's just the fear of actually like doing it, just getting out there and doing it. For me, if Tyler hadn't said, let's do it, I never would have done it. I would have been like, oh, that's not possible. But I hear a lot of people say that kind of thing, like, just write songs, just play. I don't know. You probably have something really like deep and.
If you really feel like it is something that God wants you to do, ask for help. Ask for feedback in your songs, and ask for marketing help, and ask artists that you respect how they did it, how they started, what they would recommend. Just ask for help.
Jenny and Tyler, thanks so much, man, for being here. It's been great. The new record, There Will Be a Song. Go get it. And check out their Patreon page, and we'll put all this in the show notes, you guys. Cool. So,
thanks.
Yeah, check it out. JennyandTylermusic.com. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show today. I'm blown away with the encouragement and inspiration that every guest brings, and today was certainly no different. If you want even more encouragement and inspiration to take your songwriting to the next level, be sure to check out NCS membership over on our site at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. We're all about empowering you to become the best Christian songwriter that you can be, and NCS membership is simply the fastest and easiest way to get there. Become the songwriter that you were born to be by joining NCS membership today. I'll see you next time on the Song Revolution Podcast.